Good morning, dear devotees from Sridham Mayapur. These are our adventures in Srimad Bhagavatam. So it's not really a class, this is more like a dramatic reading with comments. We'll call it that. And we're going to be speaking again about our meeting in Kurukshetra, the meeting in Kurukshetra between Krishna and the gopis, and the events that led up to that. So this is our 14th session in that. It's the 8th session in what happened in Mathura. And today I'm very excited. We're going to have a very special presentation about Krishna's discussion with Nanda Maharaja in Mathura and how it is that Krishna was able to convince him to return to Mathura alone. So before we begin, we'll start with some prayers. Goragraganya gana gocha goloruharam Gauranga Gudachama Gopyata Kolpa Briksham Gopala Gada Ratidam Yati Singha Gora Govinda Deshi Kavaram Satatam Namami Narayanam Namaskrityam Naram Shaiva Narotamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Radirayat Vede Ramayane Shaiva Purane Bhadate Tata Adavante Chamadye Chahari Sarvatra Giyate Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangum Langayate Giryam Yad Kripa Tamaham Bande Shigurum Dina Taranam Paramananda Paramananda He Madhava Padunga Luchi Makaranda Se Makaranda Panakori Anande Bolo Hari Hari Harinka Name Vandavela Padikori Be Chakadola Se Chakadolanka Paraye Manamo Rahu Nirantare Manamo Nirantare Rahu Ha Krishna Boli Jiva Jao Ha Krishna Boli Jao Jiva Moteu Dada Radha Dava Moteu Dada Radha Dava Moteu Dada Radha Dava Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So we're fortunate today that we have a new special guest with us today, Sadamard Prabhu from Vishakhapatnam. And we're here online. Naveen Prabhu is there. Anybody else, please let us know who's present online. So again, for those of you who just came on, we're going to be speaking today about what happened in Mathura. And how is it that Krishna stayed in Mathura and Nanda Maharaj returned alone. So just to give a little review in our last session or two, in our last session we're reading from the 45th chapter of the 10th canto. And the first verse there, Sukadeva Goswami describes about Krishna, Nijam Mayam Tatana Jana Mohinim. He speaks about the Nijam Maya, or the Yoga Maya potency that Krishna has, his own potency, by which Jana Mohinim, he's able to bewilder and motivate all the different living entities. And this verse is speaking about how when Krishna met with Vasudeva and Devaki, wanted you to sit there so that I can look at you sometimes because I'm looking at the screen. Otherwise, I don't look around much. When Krishna met with Vasudeva and Devaki, the first time they'd seen him since his appearance in the prison of Kamsa, they were frightened. And Sukadeva Goswami says that at that time, Nijamayam Tatana Jana Mohinim, Krishna expanded his yoga potency and bewildered them. Now, Sanatana Goswami in his Brihad Vaishnava Toshni, as we mentioned the other day, we're just reviewing a little bit, gives another meaning of this verse. He says that I offer my obeisances to this yoga maya potency, which impels the jivas with force, and which was so powerful, it could send Nanda Maharaj back to Braj. Now, as we mentioned in our last session, it's impressive that Krishna creates the universes, maintains the universe, and destroys the universes, but Sukadeva Goswami says that's really nothing. He does that through his expansion of Vishnu. What's really impressive is that he's able somehow to send Nanda Maharaj back to Braj. So we were speaking a little something from Gopal Campu, from the Uttara section, chapter 6, where Krishna went to the assembly of the Yadus and told them that he has a request. We want to return to Vrindavan. And at that time, Vikadru, an elder member of the Yadu dynasty, on behalf of all the Yadus, pleaded with him that previously we only had one enemy, who was Kamsa. But because of him, all the other kings, Jarasandha and Shishupal and others, they didn't dare to come to Mathura. They were frightened of him. But now he's gone, and all these other kings are going to want to attack us. And they told Krishna something which was very painful for him to hear. They said that actually you're not Nanda Maharaj's son, but you're our child. You belong to Mathura, you're the son of Devaki and Vasudeva, and therefore it's your obligation to protect us. There's no more dangers for the cowherd people. And when Krishna heard that, he was quiet. And without saying anything, he left the assembly, and then he went with Balaram to the palace of Vasudeva and Devaki. And there, Krishna told them, Yad Braja Lokam Vilokamaya Chava. Please give us permission. We want to go to Vrindavan. Please give us permission for this. That place which is now without light and without people. And when Vasudeva and Devaki heard that, they were quiet. And they were remembering what Krishna had said, as we described from Hari Vamsa Purana a few days ago, that when Ugrasena wanted Krishna to become the king, and Krishna said, no, you should be king. At that time, Krishna replied to Ugrasena and told him, Aham Saeva Go Madhya. I always stay among the cows. And Vasudeva and Devaki, they marked that. And hearing the words now from Krishna, meaning when I stay among the cows, meaning that Krishna was speaking like this, and Vasudeva and Devaki could understand that Krishna's meaning, I want to return to Vrindavan. And Vasudeva and Devaki, then they told Krishna, we haven't seen you since you were born. What can we do? You're our life. If you leave us, then we're going to die. Krishna and Balaram, who are Sarvagya, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Anadhir, Adhir Govinda, Sarvakarna Karnam, those personalities who have no other origin but themselves, and who create and destroy the universe, and who are Sarvagya, the knowers of everything, they became mugdha. They became confused. And they went to a private place to speak among themselves, and they said, this is really bad. We've requested our parents in a very blunt way. We want to go, please. But they won't let us. They're not giving us permission. How can we leave without their permission? And so Jiva Goswami says that Tasmat Shri Brajesu Charana Samadhanam Eva Sampraptam Iti. The word Sampraptam is used twice. It means a proper or suitable time or what it is proper at this time. So tasmat Sri Bhajesa Charana, we have to go to the feet of Bapa, of Father. And the 45th chapter of the Bhagavatam, beginning with the 20th verse, describes what Krishna said to Nanda Maharaj. So listen carefully. This is the beginning, really, of our discussion today. Krishna told Nanda Maharaj, Sukadeva Goswami is speaking to Kurukshetra Maharaj still, and he says, Atanandam samasadya bhagavan devaki sutta sankarshanas charajendra parisvajedam uchutu. He said to him, oh, Kurukshetra Maharaj, that Krishna, who's the son of Devaki, along with Balaram, approached Nanda Maharaj, and it said there, parisvaja. And this word parisvaja is important, in both Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur and Jiva Goswami comment on this. Parisvaja means they embraced Nanda Maharaj, and they spoke to him as follows. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says the meaning of this verse is that Krishna approached Nanda Maharaj and really identified himself as the son, as his son. And the words in the verse Devaki Sutta indicate that actually he was hiding his identity and his connection with Devaki. And he says that the phrase Sankarshanas Cha has a very special meaning also. That Krishna is implying the etymology of Balaram's name. In the 8th chapter, the 10th canto, it said the Yadunam apitak bhavat sankarshanam usnanyapyapi. Garga Muni is describing another meaning of the word sankarshan. Balaram is known as Sankarshan because he'll unite these two families, the families of Vasudeva and the family of Nanda Maharaj. And because he'll do that, he's known as Sankarshan. And Vishwanath says that this word, parisvaja, implies embracing, that actually there was no opportunity to offer obeisances when they came in, because as soon as Nanda Maharaj saw Krishna and Balaram, he became ecstatic. And immediately they started to offer obeisances, and he just raised them up and embraced them very tightly to his chest. And Vishwanath says, although it was actually Nanda Maharaj who embraced Krishna and Balaram, the embrace is attributed to them in this verse. In other words, the verse has some subtle meanings to it. And those persons who hear this verse, who are attached to Krishna's pastimes in Mathura and think of Krishna as the son of Devaki, they'll understand it in that way, that Krishna and Balaram went and embraced Nanda Maharaj. In other words, we feel sorry for you. That's kind of implied. But Vishwanath says, no. Actually, it was the other way around. And that Krishna and Balaram then began to speak very humbly to comfort him. And they spoke the following words, which we'll be hearing. Jiva Goswami in Laghu Vaishnav Toshani, he says that after the Yadus were taken care of, as described above, Krishna thought to himself, now we have to send Nanda Maharaj back to Braj this very evening. But the evening had already come. So then Krishna thought, well, we'll send him back tomorrow morning. But every day, as we discussed in our last session, Vasudeva was inviting Nanda Maharaj and all the cowherd boys to come to eat in their house. And so it was like a festival every day. And so then several days went by. And Krishna was thinking, what can I do? I have to take care of the Yadu dynasty. The members, they're asking me this thing. They're appealing to us. And if I return back to Vrindavan now, then Jarasandha is going to attack Mathura, and the people here won't be protected. And he's thinking that if I return to Vrindavan and Jarasandha attacks, I can defeat him, but it'll disturb the whole mood of Vrindavan. Vrindavan is not the place to fight with big armies. So then Krishna and Balaram, they met Nanda Maharaj, Jiva Goswami says, in a private place. And they embraced him with the emotions befitting a child. And they spoke to him. Sanatana Goswami in Brihad Vaishnav Toshani says that Krishna was delayed for a few days in Mathura to respect the city and console the members of the Yadu dynasty. And every day he was thinking, I'm going to return to Vrindavan. But then the members of the Yadu dynasty spoke to him in this way. And then it said that Krishna, he went to Nanda Maharaj, to that place on the outskirts of Mathura, we spoke about from Jiva Goswami's Gopal Campu, where they had their camp and all their carts were at. And he spoke to Nanda Maharaj. And Nanda Maharaj, he sent some message back to Vrindavan. Hatvakang samranga madhye pratipadam sarva sattvatam yadaha vasamagatya Krishna satyam karoti tat. Nanda Maharaj, he said that Krishna's killed Kamsa. And now he uses the word satyam. I promise, I vow to you, Krishna's coming back soon. So, understanding all this, Krishna approached Nanda Maharaj not in the arena where he killed Kamsa, but he approached him in a private place, in the mood of being his son. Jiva Goswami in Gopal Campu then describes the words of Nanda Maharaj to Krishna. Yatra shada sadad bitti satatra virahajvarat bhavad vayam bhavat yeveti akulam sutta manmana. He said, my dear son, fear arises here in Mathura. Yatashat asarad biti. Asura means by the demons. This biti, this fear arises because of the demons. But satatra virahajvarat. Fear arises in Braj because of separation from you. So there's these two fears. And trying to understand how to reconcile these two things is troubling my mind. Akulam sutta manmana. My mind, my mana is troubled. And he said we should help the members of the Yadu dynasty. Narad Muni and Garga Muni all both advised this. And it was because of that that it didn't stop you from coming here to Mathura. And then Nanda Maharaj was quiet for a moment. And with a choked voice and some tears coming down his face, Nanda Maharaj said, we've heard that previously Dasarath sent his son at a very young age to kill the Rakshasas, to protect the sages, and then later he died in separation from his son when he went to the forest. And saying this, Nanda Maharaj became choked up and crying, and he embraced Krishna and just holding on to him was looking at his face. And then Krishna put his mouth just to the ear of Nanda Maharaj and his face by the face of his father. And he said, Bapa. In a choked voice, Krishna said, don't have any doubt. All these evil rascals are going to be killed. Garga Muni promised many times there was going to be a good result to all this. And once in a solitary place on the edge of a forest, Narad Muni told me about this. Where I stay, great people are going to come and worship me, but that's not Vrindavan. He said, the cowherd people of Vrindavan, they're my relatives. And the Yadus, they're my friends. And this is the difference. I sometimes stay with my friends to help them, but I always live with my relatives. And then Krishna was quiet for a moment. And remembering what the members of the Yadu dynasty had said to him, the Kadru had spoken to him, Krishna said, Bapa, they say you're not my father, but Vasudeva is really my father, and Devaki's my mother. Nanda Maharaj was quiet for a moment. He hung his head down and he looked at Krishna. And he said, Krishna, do you believe them? And then Krishna began to cry. And he said, no, you're always my father. And in the 21st verse of this 45th chapter, Krishna told Nanda Maharaj, Pita yuvabhyam snigdhabhyam poshito lalito brisham pitro abhyadika prittir atmajesh atmano pihi. he said, he addressed Nanda Maharaj as Pitta, as father. Pitta Yuvabhyam. Yuvabhyam means the two. We have the Yugala, like Yugal Kishore, the same Bij Dhatu in this verse. Yuvabhyam, by the two of you, indicating then Mother Yashoda. And he says that Poshitam, Lolita, Brisham, you thoroughly maintained me with Lalito. You were coddling, you were taking care of me like a little baby. Snigdabhyam, with great snigda, with great affection. And the general meaning of the verse, Tatra Pitro, Abhyadika Pritir Admajes Atmano Pihi, means that parents, they love their children more than their own lives. So Vishwanath says that Balaram was the elder in Krishna, and he spoke the first line, Pitar Yuvabhyam Snigdabhyam. The father, we were cared for and protected by the two of you, Nanda and Yashoda. And it's natural that mothers and fathers have greater love for their children, even for their own bodies. And this word poshito, maintain, is the way it's given verbally. And Lalito indicates that Nanda and Yashoda felt the same affection for both children. So Balaram's saying, you're just as much my parents as you were Krishna's parents. And Vishwanath says that Balaram's also hinting that without the two of you, and Krishna, who's millions of times more dear to me than my own life, I can't stay here in this city, in the house of my unknown parents, Vasudeva and Devaki. I've never met them. I've never spent any time with them. How can I stay here? Balaram is indicating. How can I stay here, Nanda Maharaj, when you leave? How can I stay here without Krishna? Krishna will return with you. And Jiva Goswami in Laghu Vaishnav Toshini says that they spoke to Nanda Maharaj saying that you took such care of us, you fed us, you bathed us, you did so many things. And Sanatana Goswami in Brihad Vaishnav Toshini says that Krishna is telling him, he's addressing Nanda Maharaj as father, indicating, you're my real father. And he negates any vague idea someone might have by the previous verse, where he says that Devaki Sutta, Shukadeva Goswami says, by using the word poshita, poshita means to nourish. So we're not just foster children, we're the real children. And Sanatana Goswami is saying that although Yashoda is not present, Krishna is remembering her just as if she were present. He has so much love for his mother. And Krishna then speaks to Nanda Maharaj. Sapita sapcha janani yo pushnitam swaputravat sishun bandubir utsritstan akalpai posha rakshane. Those persons are the real father and mother who take care of their own sons. Children who may be abandoned by their relatives or unable to maintain and protect them. Vishwanath says that Nanda Maharaj protesting, he says, my dear Balaram, actually, you're really the son of Vasudeva. How can he, now that he's released from his dangerous situation, how can he give up his own son? Therefore, you should immediately go to your father's house and stay there. And somehow, we'll carry on living. We'll block up our hearts, which are going to be torn apart by separation from you. But I can't bear to see the suffering of my friend Vasudeva. And he hangs his head down. He says, because after all, we're only your foster parents. And Nanda Maharaj is perhaps thinking like this. Different things are said, as we've discussed in some of the previous sessions, according to Hari Vamsa Purana, according to the commentaries of Vishwanath and Jiva Goswami, according to Prabhupada's commentary, not in Krishna book, but in the 10th canto, that Krishna is actually the son of Yashoda, and the umbilical cord was cut at the time of his birth. But still, Nanda Maharaj, in his humility, he's thinking like this. It's a very beautiful thing to me. He's not quarreling. He's not saying, who do you think you are, you residents of Mathura? Krishna really belongs to us. Although he has the greatest attachment that we can't even conceive how attached Nanda Maharaj is to Krishna. That's one thing. And the other thing is that he can't tolerate seeing the suffering of Vasudeva. And he's willing to suffer himself rather than see Vasudeva suffering. And Vishwanath says that Balaram then replies in this verse that those people who care for a child as if they were their own son, they're the real father and mother. Don't tell us that you're foster parents. The father who gives birth, he's not the real father. And the mother who takes care of the child in the womb is not actually the real mother. If they abandon the child and the child dies, then how can they be called father and mother? But the parents who raise the child, they're more worthy of respect. And therefore, I can't stay here. And even if Lord Brahma, Vishwanath says, comes here, Balaram Stanley, and orders me, he won't be able to change my mind. And then Balaram begins to cry and he says, Father, Krishna will go with you and he'll play in Braj. I can't stay here in Mathura, separated from Krishna. Therefore, I make a vow. If Krishna leaves me behind and goes back to Vrindavan, then I'll die. And Vishwanath says this is what Balaram means by speaking this way. Jiva Goswami in Laghu Vaishnava Toshan, he says that Balaram is indicating that actually I'm only your child. I was really nourished and cared for by you and Yashoda. You're my parents and no one else. When Nanda Maharaj heard the words of Krishna and Balaram, Jiva Goswami and Gopal Campu says that Nanda Maharaj at that time, he said, then Krishna will stay here with you. If you're going to stay in Mathura, then we'll also stay. And then Krishna said, Bapa, don't do this. How will mother live separated from you and from me? And then Nanda Maharaj said, then I'll bring her here. And Krishna said, Bapa, if you do like that, then all the residents of Vrindavan will die. Krishna's left Vrindavan. Nanda and Yashoda have left Vrindavan. What is the hope they'll think of Krishna returning again? And then Nanda Maharaj said, then I'll bring everyone of Braj here. And at that time, Krishna said, Samprapt asmakam bahula pratyaham sankhyaadikaya pratyata sustu bahula jataha. My dear father, how many cows do we have? They become asankhya, uncountable. And every day, they're increasing, they're multiplying every day. Tasham upanagadavanam, kim upajivanam shat. Father, how many parks are here in Mathura? And how many cows do we have? There's not enough parks here to feed all of them. He said, but Gavas Chashmakam Kula Devya Itita Eva Sevatyam Arhanti. The cows, there are Kula Devatas. They're the worshipful deities for our family. And those cows, Itita Eva Sevyatam, they must be served. So Jadi, meaning if, Jadiva Marartam Sarvam Bhavatam, Mam Vinatu Bhyartam Iti Samartaniyam Tahi Cha Mat Prana, Eva Ta Iti Ta Eva Prananiya. If you think that Madartam, that everything is for me, Madartam Sarvam Bhavatam, and without me, Mam Vinatu Bhyartam, without me everything is useless, then because the cows, Chamat Prana, those cows are my life. Those cows have to be maintained. So you have to go back to Vrindavan. The Yadu dynasty members, they won't say anything against me. But it's clear, because I killed Kamsa, then so many millions of rascals are going to attack Mathura. And if they know that I'm close with you, then they'll attack Vrindavan with great armies. So I can't do that. And Krishna said, Sankyam ati charantinam vani charantam gavam avaranam tu sutaram eva dushkaram. How is it? I won't be able to take care of all the cows in a fortress here. And so I'm going to become indifferent to you. I'm going to make them think that I don't care, because if they know that I care so much about you, then they'll attack Vrindavan. And therefore, Father, I have to stay here. So Jiva Goswami explains this is the reason why Krishna remained in Mathura, because of the cows. Why Nanda Maharaja didn't bring everyone in Vrindavan to Mathura. And it's mentioned a little later in the 46th chapter, the 10th canto. Maybe we'll speak something about that. That when Vasudeva then is freed from the prison and Nanda Maharaj is returned, then Vasudeva, I think he gave 100,000 cows to Krishna, to the Brahmins, out of charity. And Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur mentions that previously those cows had been captured or taken over by Kamsa. And now that Kamsa was dead, then Vasudeva went to where Kamsa had been keeping them and took the cows back and then gave them in charity. So there were cows in Mathura. There are cows to this day, but there's not enough room for the cows of Krishna. In the 90th chapter of the Krishna book, Prabhupada mentions an amazing thing. I'll read you the sentence. Listen carefully. He says, it is said that King Ugrasena alone had 10 quadrillion soldiers as personal bodyguards. 10 quadrillion. Okay? 1 quadrillion is equal to 1,000 million million. 1 quadrillion is 1 with 15 zeros following it. The world population today is a little over 7 billion people. So, according to Srila Prabhupada, Maharaj Ugrasena had over 100,000 times more personal bodyguards than the entire population of the planet today. That's just the bodyguards also. And then aside from that, there are also cooks and priests and Brahmins and housewives and children and so many other different personalities there. And what to speak of the cows of Vrindavan. In his purport in the 12th chapter, the 10th canto, 1 verse, Vishwanath describes that the number of Krishna's cows exceeded 1 by 17 zeros. So that's somewhere in the realm of 100 quadrillion cows. And Vishwanath explains, actually that's just the young calves. And the older cows far, far exceed that amount. So in his commentary to the 12th chapter, 2nd verse of that 10th canto, Jiva Goswami explains that those cows were asankhya. They can't even be counted. It was unlimited. So how do we understand this? Is it an allegory? Is it just some exaggeration? There was one conversation I listened to with Srila Prabhupada and a couple of his disciples who unfortunately lost faith due to some bad things that had happened in the movement. And they came with some challenging questions to Srila Prabhupada. And one of their questions was, how in the world do we understand that Maharaj Ugrasena had 10 quadrillion bodyguards, just the bodyguards, and what to speak of everybody else? And they asked Prabhupada a question which is, it wasn't very humble, it wasn't very respectful, but actually it's kind of a good question in a way. They said, how are there enough toilets? And there's just 10 quadrillion bodyguard. I mean, it's crazy. So is this an allegory? Is it an exaggeration? And Srila Prabhupada in that conversation didn't answer their challenge. And he doesn't say exactly why, but you can kind of see implied in how he dealt with them was that it was not appropriate to challenge the spiritual master in that way. But don't think it means that Prabhupada was stumped. Prabhupada didn't have an answer. Vishwanath in his Sarita Darshani commentary, he explains, Sacha sadosha kroshi matra shi brindavana shi pradeshi tavanto vatsaha naiva bantiti vacham bhagavad vigrahashyaiva damnas chasha tatapa rimati hadve pyachincha shaktya vibhuvat tat pradeshaika deshe. He says that don't think that Vrindavan, now we're saying that Maharaj Ugrasena had 10 quadrillion bodyguards, and Vishwanath says that Krishna had 100 quadrillion cows, and the older cows far exceeded that number. Now this is not on the planet. This is within the 32 square mile area of Vrindavan. It's like a few billion times more than the entire population of this planet, and they fit everybody in the 32 square mile area of Vrindavan. As some of my friends might say, sure, right. How do we understand that? So Vishwanath says, don't have any doubt about it. Because the Dham of Vrindavan, every grain of dust in Vrindavan can accommodate billions of universes, each speck of dust in Vrindavan. So what to speak of a few hundred quadrillion cows? That's nothing. So in the Garga Samhita, it also speaks about the exchange between Krishna and the members of the Yadu dynasty, and Krishna's words to Nanda Maharaj. This is in the 5th canto, chapter 9. It said there, Ahuya yadavan kangsa bhayad desantaram gatan premna nivasayam asa sukutam ban yado puri. That Krishna called of the members of the Yadu dynasty, many of them they'd run away because they were afraid of Kamsa. And they were hiding in different places. And in the Akrura Sangvad, which we were speaking earlier, it said that when Akrura came to speak with Nanda Maharaj, he was telling him that the members of the Yadu dynasty, they'd run away out of fear of Kamsa. And every day Kamsa was threatening to send his armies to find them and kill them, because Kamsa was sure there was some conspiracy against him. And we mentioned and looked back again in our previous discussions how this is a big difference between the mentality of someone like Kamsa and someone like Ravan, who both felt that there were conspiracies against them and they didn't trust anyone. And the Brijbasis, who were so simple that when Putana came to the home of Nanda Maharaj, Mother Yashoda said, I don't know who you are, but you're a beautiful lady and you obviously have love for my Krishna. Sure, go ahead, give your breast to him. They were so simple. The boys, when Vatsasura came, the boys didn't question, who are you? We'd never seen you before. When Pralambasura came, and Jiva Goswami and Gopal Campu says that Krishna addressed him with the word, I can't recall. Bhadra, right. Very nice word, which has very deep meaning. Bhadra has many different meanings, one of which is it's an auspicious way to greet a friend. Hey, yo, Bhadra! But Bhadra has other meanings too. One meaning, according to Amar Kosh, is someone who's an actor. Bhadra is a type of actor, someone who's not really what they appear. And Bhadra also refers to someone who's a great rascal and demon. So Krishna is saying many different things. And the cowherd boys are so simple, they just hear, oh, he said Bhadra. It means that this must be a special boy. Krishna loves him. When Shankachuta came, Rupa Goswami, Lita Madhav says that Brinda Devi thought that Shankachuta was the sun god coming to worship Vrishabhanu Maharaj and was a devotee of Radharani. They are so simple. They're so simple. Huh? So Krishna, he called for all those members of the Yadu dynasty who'd run away out of fear of Kamsa. And then he gave them places in Mathura to stay with him and their families. Nanda Rajam Gapoganai Swagrihan Gantum Udyatam Natvatam Sabala Praha Mohayan Eva Mayaya. And then a similar thing is described, as the Bhagavatam says, that Mohayan Eva Mayaya, that Krishna and Balaram, they bewildered Nanda Maharaj and the cowherd boys. That they bowed down before them. And then Krishna said to his father, Atraiva vasam kuru tata puryam gantum yadicha manasotita syat paschadaham vai sabalo yadunva vidaya parshvantava chagamisye. He said, oh my dear father, my dear Bappa, maybe you should stay here also in Mathura for some time. Or if you feel the need to return to Vrindavan, then you can go. But Balaram and I, we have to stay here for a little while longer. So many, many things were said between Krishna and his father. And I want to, in our next session, which will be on Friday, the day after tomorrow, we want to sing a song to you from the poet Chandidas, who was very, very dear to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and was very, very dear to the Gaudiya Vaishnavas, that describe the exchange between Nanda and Krishna at that time. And Nanda Maharaj, what he said to Krishna, and how it was that he was finally convinced by Krishna to leave Mathura and to leave his son and return to Vrindavan. So I want to offer my pranams to Raghava Pandit Prabhu, who's taking part from America. It must be 11 o'clock at night or something there. Thank you for taking part, my dear brother. And Hari Budi Prabhu, who's in Uruguay. I don't know what time it is there. It must also be very late, I think, also. So we're going to go ahead and stop here. And if anybody online is watching and you have any reflections, I'd like to know what you're walking away with from the discussion today, or anybody here, Sadhu Marg Prabhu, maybe you have some reflection, something you remember, you appreciated from the talk, or you have anything? If you can, maybe come here and speak into the space ball.
Hare Krishna. Is it a mic or okay? Hare Krishna. Very grateful to you for giving this opportunity to hear from you, Prabhuji. It was really very exciting, very amazing, very wonderful that the feelings of Nanda Maharaj and Krishna and Balram is I never heard such wonderful exchanges between them. Who are the real parents, and what a very beautiful loving exchanges between Nanda Maharaj and Krishna and Balram. And as you mentioned that Krishna can destroy many universes, but to send Nanda Maharaj back was the toughest thing, which we never actually thought like that. So it was so inspiring, so purifying. Thank you so much, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much for joining us today, Hari Bodhi, Sadhu Marg Prabhu. Appreciate it. Hare Krishna. And anybody else here with anything? Anapayani Radha, you have any reflections?
Hare Krishna, thank you so much for this wonderful katha. Yeah, it's enough. I was really pleased to hear about feelings of Balaram towards Krishna, that he said, I would die if I will be separated from Krishna. And also it was nice to hear again about this quadrillions, millions cows, this different kind of people, that there are so many of them, and we have to understand this is not like they feed it in the small space and material consideration. So it's actually a spiritual world, and it's another sphere. We couldn't put it in our mind, and that's why we have some kind of questions sometimes. But it's so nice to come back to this point that it's not material things, and we can't understand it with our limited mind and things. Thank you.
I very much appreciate Jiva Goswami's presentation in Gopal Campu. The cows are always there. Whenever Vrindavan Leela, including we'll hear more about Kurukshetra Leela and how the cows are also, the Braj cows are also involved when the Brijbasis meet with Krishna and Kurukshetra. We'll hear something more about that later. And we heard previously how when Krishna left Vrindavan, not everybody could come. Mother Yashoda couldn't come. And so Krishna then gave instructions to the boys who stayed behind, and the older brothers of Nanda Maharaj. Jiva Goswami says they were asked by him to stay behind, and also said in Hari Vamsa Purana. And Krishna told them that you stay behind, and if you love me, take care of my mother and take care of the cows. So the cows are they're there everywhere, and it's such an important thing. And this is why Nanda Maharaj returned to Vrindavan without Krishna, because of the cows. Because Krishna said that these are our Kula Devata, these are the deities of our dynasty. We have to take care of the cows. And Father, there maybe Vasudeva can have 100,000 cows, but we have over 100 quadrillion cows. And there's not enough parks and Mathura to feed all of them. So you have to take them. You have to go back and take care of them. Krishna Kundi, you have some comments, reflection?
Just a small comment. I was very much struck by Nanda Maharaj's humility and how he said, first of all, I love this thing from Krishna. I just say this first, that sometimes you stay with your friends, but you always stay with your family.
Always live with your family.
You're always living with your family. And then Nanda Maharaj's answer that after all we are your foster parents. That breaks your heart to hear that, to hear him say that. But what struck me also is that Vasudev's suffering, Nanda Maharaj seeing Vasudev's suffering, that's more important to him than his own suffering. And this is Vrindavan. That everybody else is more important. Everybody else should be with Krishna. Everybody else comes before me. My name comes on the list if there is a chronological list, as Gurudev says. And this kind of humility just really struck my heart.
What a beautiful comment. Thank you very much. Okay, so we'll go ahead and Anupani answer this. She has a question.
Because you spoke about different reasons why Nanda Maharaj left, because Krishna told him a few things. As I understand, the final thing which convinced Nanda was that if cows, but another thing he said also that if he will pay attention to Vrindavan and he will come back there, so all the demons, they will understand that it's so, this place and all these people, they're so dear for Krishna, and they definitely will attack it. So what is the main reason? What exactly convinced Nanda Maharaj?
There's two reasons we offered there. But you're asking what is the main reason? The main reason is something underlying both of those. And that is a desire of Krishna, which was expressed for these two different reasons. And we'll hear more about this other reason. We're going to hear in our upcoming descriptions, we'll hear something about Uddhava Sandesh and maybe Hansaduta and how the exchange of letters. Our next session, we'll be here from Chandidas, but we'll also, I think we'll maybe get to some of the letters, because Nanda Maharaj tells Krishna, how can I return to your mother alone? And Krishna writes a letter to Mother Yashoda. It's a really beautiful letter. And we'll hear something about her reply, because those are sent with messengers, and the letters between Krishna and the gopis, and we'll also hear something about from Mathura meets Vrindavan. We'll discuss some from Guru Maharaj and some very little known books. One of them, let's see here, one of them, Dibyonmada. I'm thinking to do Dibyonmada, and we're going to work on it more with the Bengali and things before we do that. And then we want to go to some little known books like Vrindavan Nilamrita and speak about what happened in Dwarka when Krishna was there and how the whole meeting in Kurukshetra was set up. And then from Gopal Campu, how Krishna sent a letter to Nanda Maharaj from Dwarka with a suggestion that they meet in Kurukshetra, and what happened and why not everyone went to Kurukshetra. And why is it that some stayed behind and some went, and who stayed behind, and what happened in Kurukshetra. That's our, and then we want to speak something about the connection between Kurukshetra and Gora Lila. So this is some of our future things coming up. So I want to thank everybody very much for giving us this opportunity to read a little something and reflect some things. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Samaveda Bhakta Binda ki jai, Vancha